to the Newly podcast, where you get practical, no BS insights on how to grow yourself and grow your career. On this episode, we are talking to my friend Annika Johnson. Annika is a seasoned program administrator, a multi-talented people leader, and a relationship-focused team builder. Welcome, Annika. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so thankful for being on here, but I just wanted to um, make that a point to say thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to talk to all your listeners a little bit about myself, my little A to B story, how I got where I am. I actually started in teaching. So I have a teaching degree from the wonderful Bethel University here in Minnesota and St. Paul. I thought I was going to spend my whole life in a classroom with 30 kindergarten students, which felt at that point like my dream job. I know that feels like a nightmare for some people, but for me, that was my sweet spot. That was going to be where I was going to pour my life out. I taught for a few years in some preschools in the inner city. I taught kindergarten at New Millennium Academy, which is a Hmong charter school. Loved that. I then wandered out to the suburbs and taught kindergarten in the suburbs. But surprise, surprise, ended up having not just one child, but actually two children by the time I was 25, and that really slowed down the career trajectory.
Oh my,
They
yes.
became they became my main focus. Um, and at that point, my teaching degree was not making me an income that was sufficient to pay for two kids in daycare. So,
Mhm,
put the
mhm.
brakes on. I decided to stay home and then started doing some contract work actually at my church
Oh, wow.
in program development and administration. So that completely changed what I thought I was going to do. I thought it was just a little pause. But at Open Door, where I ended up staying for over 20 years in women's and kids ministry, developing programs, evaluation, writing curriculum, all doing all things program and leadership development for that large church community. I realized there that I didn't just love creating environments where people could grow and thrive, like I had learned to do with my teaching degree and in the classroom, but I actually loved developing relationships and developing teams
Mm,
and helping
yeah.
people find the place that they wanted to be and helping
Wow.
programs hit the metrics that they and the goals that they were looking for. So I really
Mm,
took my teaching degree and all the evaluation and leading and teaching tactics that I had learned to use in the classroom and laid them over the top of programs. And that's really where I began to love this idea um, of relationship and really started to hone in my skills and my knowledge there. So that's where I spent the most of my career. So I did turn 40 last week.
oh my.
Um,
Ooh, good. Well, you don't look 40, just have to say that.
Oh, thank you. I did get a little extra sun this week, so I'm hoping that that helps the 40-year-old skin. But
Ah,
I am in a little bit of a transition right now. I am doing some consulting work. After Open Door, I did hop into some work in local nonprofits where I did relationship and program development with local executive directors of other nonprofits, leading
oh,
a leadership
cool.
program. Yeah, it was. We also had a faith-based Shark Tank that we ran. It
Oh,
really, a
wow.
really great program. Yeah, really fun
Yeah.
and
Well,
exciting. But I am in a transition here. I'm 40, so
yeah, yeah. You gotta do the purpose, your purpose. You gotta figure that
yeah.
out. And I know a lot of people have had moments in their 40s where they're like, I just really need to find the thing that
Mhm.
I want to pour my life into. And I think it's so neat that you are embracing that. You're embracing that challenge for yourself, which is, takes a lot of courage. So that's great.
Yeah, yeah. We're just calling it a little pause. That was
Right.
my daughter's spelling word last week, and I had to reiterate to her like what pause meant. Pause just means
Mm,
it's a little stop, right?
right. Totally.
You're not necessarily losing all momentum. It's just a
Hmm.
pause. So I'm just doing some reevaluation, exploring this idea of a tech startup. So I'm working on a tech
Ooh.
startup. Yeah, it's been really energizing and has helped me feel that creativity again,
Mm-hmm.
which is good to feel
Yes.
when you have been doing the same thing for a long time. Um,
Mm.
and I'm also doing some consulting work, some content management. A lot of people get to know me because I'm actually a content writer on the side
Oh,
and have
wow.
been for years. So, one of those jack of all trades kind of ladies. So,
Yeah.
doing some
Geez.
consulting work and looking for a place to land, a place to call home, a place to continue to grow teams, to build
Mm.
relationships, and to create ripples of impact in our communities. So, there's my long, short version of who I am, where I've been, and how I got here.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think there's so much rich information to dig into there, and I'm really excited to dive into our topic of relationship development. So let's just dive in. So the show theme today is leveling up relationship development for career growth, and it really seems like you've really learned how to do that for yourself, especially with your long stint in program management. So we're going to start there. Tell me in program management and program development. Tell me about how you navigated the challenge of coordinating large groups of people or volunteers. I'm sure you probably coordinate a lot of volunteers.
Yeah, large groups of people was kind of my bread and butter when in the throes of my career, especially at Church of the Open Door. You'd see me facilitating groups anywhere from 10 to, I mean, speaking in front of groups of 3,000 to 5,000 people. When
Wow.
I was
Wow.
coordinating, yeah, when I was coordinating groups of volunteers, staff, um, I think the most important thing to remember is that no one wants to feel like they're just a number. And
Mm,
so when you're fostering a relationship with anybody, you want to make sure that you're listening first.
mm. Yeah.
I am one that so often will be the first to speak, and I just learned in developing relationships that I need to listen first.
Mm,
Because
mm.
in
What a great
listening, you're
lesson.
going to find those different cues, those different pieces of their story. You're going to hear about what's important to them. And
Mm.
especially in volunteer recruitment and development, those are the cues that are going to allow you to place that person in a role where they're going to thrive.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
that is the ultimate goal.
And I'm sure
Um,
that's really important since you're not paying them. You really want them to have that stickiness to know where they're going to thrive and be excited to keep coming back every month or every week.
Yes, stickiness is very, very important. Yeah, so I just think that listening is the biggest tool that I learned in the roles that I had there. Sometimes baptism through fire, sometimes through failure. I have a couple
Yeah.
great failure stories, as we all do.
Mm,
But listening first for those cues and the things that make that person unique. Um,
mm.
is what really helped me lead large groups of people. So,
That's fantastic. Yeah, I love that insight of listening first. And I'm sure that there was just a lot of challenges in knowing how to listen to so many people, such a large volume of people at once. What would you say is a tip for leaders of large groups of people to really maximize the time they spend with every person?
oh, that's so good. I mean, delegation, which
Mm,
is a
mhm.
word I simultaneously love and hate. There were things that only I could do that were unique and needed my eyes on them. But
Mm,
I ended up developing a team that took over for me when I left.
wow, wow.
And finding those two key coaches and pouring everything that I knew into them and
Mm.
creating a system that worked for them that was replicatable. Is that a word?
Yeah, yeah,
Duplicatable? Replicatable? I don't know.
absolutely.
If I just
Well,
made it up, that's fine.
yeah.
But creating systems of replication so that the things that I did, that I learned, that I created, that needed to stay, could stay.
Mm,
And
mhm,
then the
mhm,
things that were about my personality or my preferences they could adjust and change to what they needed to. So allowing space for both the uniqueness of that person to come out, and then also creating the stability and the consistency in the systems and in the relationship. So hope that's
That is
helpful
so,
to
yeah,
someone.
absolutely. That's so fantastic. What I love about that, there's a couple of key points that I think are really important to touch on. One, I know is there's this sort of old, I don't know if it's an old wives' tale or old, this idea that in entrepreneurial businesses, that you've done your job as a leader when your team no longer needs you to be able to do their jobs. And so I just
Right.
think it's really impressive that you basically sort of coach these people into making your job obsolete. Not really, but since you were leaving, you really set that stage. So that really speaks to talent development. That really speaks to an understanding of people leadership. So I think that's really amazing. But I also think delegation is really hard, and knowing what things to delegate and what things can be flexible is really difficult. How did you know that? How did you know when to be flexible?
Um, Trial and error.
Yeah, I
Trial and
suppose.
error.
Yeah.
I think delegation is really hard, but you
Mm.
just have to rip that band-aid off. Like so
Mhm.
much in our life that is hard to do. Like you just have to try it. And
Mhm.
sometimes it flops and you fail and you make a mistake. Um, but trying
Mhm.
is the
Mhm.
only
Mhm.
way that I found my way to delegate and to pass the keys off,
Mm.
um, or pass the keys to somebody else. So, and then
That's
really,
fantastic.
I mean, you asked that really good question about like, how did I know when to kind of pull the reins back, and when did
Mhm.
I know how to let someone's personality really shine through? And as long as, no one was getting hurt and the outcome achieved the same goal that our program had set for us.
Mm.
I always had those nice boundaries
Mhm.
of our program goals. And so, as long as it fit within the confines of those program goals and guidelines, and of course, some of what I did at Open Door, there were some federal regulations for
Mhm.
childcare and stuff like that. So all of that in mind, as long as it fit within the confines of no one was getting hurt, and um, it's good to let someone else do your job in a way that is different from you, because you end up learning a lot about yourself,
Mm,
and you end
yeah.
up learning a lot about that person as well. But I
That's
digress. I could keep
fantastic.
going.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So knowing, there's a lot of different places you've done program management, program development, primarily,
Right.
with these people. But tell me a little bit about your insights. I know that you've managed, lots of peers. Because when you're managing volunteers, there's a lot of peers, but also there were a lot of peers at your church that when you were doing program management. What is it? How does it? It's such a hard thing to do. First of
Yes.
all, it's so hard to lead people that are your peers, like what's that balance? So what did you do to make that successful, or how did you approach that for that to be successful?
Yeah, so I have managed or worked with groups of peers in a lot of different organizations. We're kind of picking on, at least in that those last few questions, my work at Church of the Open Door, which is where I spent a lot of my career. But I also worked on a school board at New Millennium Academy. I did some
Yeah.
work at St. David's Child Development Center in a summer program for students with developmental disabilities.
Oh,
I have
wow.
led and managed teams across a pretty broad spectrum of populations and programs. And leading peers is, I think, one of the most under talked about topics. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think the thing that has made me successful at that, again, is my ability
Hmm.
to listen first.
Yeah.
It just is so key, again, in no matter what kind of relationship that you are entering into in a workspace, just to listen first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I think the second, as long as it is a decently healthy, growing team or a team that is looking to be healthy, is to bring your authentic self to the table, full of
Mm,
failures and successes,
yeah.
and
Mm,
being willing to admit that.
mm,
Because when you do that first as a peer, it allows other people to do the same thing. And you
mm,
actually can end up finding a synergy and an energy where you're coming alongside of each other and working together versus trying to one up each other, get the promotion, get the
mm,
next step, move on to your career. And your program just ends up, I think, working better. In my opinion,
mm.
I've been on teams of
Yeah.
peers who are working towards different program goals, those that are wildly successful and those that fail or flop in some way, shape, or form. And I really truly think the authenticity and the ability to listen in those teams is what sets them apart in their ability to successfully grow a program, no matter what it is or what demographic it serves.
Yeah, I think you're so right. I was talking to an executive the other day, and they were telling me that, they had a situation where they had a peer group that really needed to break down a conflict, and to your point, they brought trust to the table, they brought authenticity to the table, and it really created a rapport that gelled the team. And it sounds like that's what your experience has been, is bringing that authenticity, and listening first creates that rapport and trust that kind of builds a solid foundation. Could you just comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that we so often are focused, and I'm guilty of this too, the competitiveness that the workplace brings out in all of us, if we're
Mhm,
honest. No
mhm.
matter what organization you're in, whether it's a church, whether it's a nonprofit, or a for profit, there is competitiveness that
Yeah,
happens in the workplace
that's real.
between
Yep.
men and women, between women and women, between men and men. And when we're willing to let down our guard, even just a little bit, and realize that there's room for everyone at the table, for everyone's voice to be heard, and for all of us to
Mm,
work towards that common goal, um, that is a place where we're going to see teams that explode and excel
mm,
versus working against each other and getting the last word and making sure that our idea is the one that wins or we're the ones that get credit for it.
yeah.
Um, laying those things aside, which are not popular things to do
Mhm,
right now in the workplace, but those are the things that are going to set teams apart that I've seen set teams apart for program growth and relationship growth.
wow, there's so many great insights there. I love that you feature, talking about sort of putting a structure around how are we gonna create this authenticity? How are we gonna create this trust? How are we gonna kind of build relationships together? It seems like, obviously as a program manager, there's a lot of systems you're developing, but it seems like there's a sort of a theme in your career of system development, to support people. So tell me a little bit about how systems can empower relationship development, or have empowered relationship development for you.
Yeah, I think systems they get such a bad rap, right? They're
Mhm.
rigid. You have to do them. You have to create your reports. You have to do this, that, or the other thing. And I think really systems can be such a great tool if you make them work for you. So there's always going to
Okay.
be, yeah, right? Game
Mm.
changer.
Mhm,
Whether
mhm.
it's your CRM, whether it's your federal guidelines, whether it's your state guidelines. I mean, there are just systems that we all have to abide by.
Mhm.
They create monotony. Britta, you and I were talking about that just this morning over text. This whole
Yes.
idea of monotony. And again, systems get a bad rap.
Mm,
Most recently, I've been working in a lot of systems in this tech startup and really trying to make them work for me versus me trying to shove the work that I need to get done into the system.
oh,
Right? What's that
wow.
saying? It's like a square peg in a
Round
round
hole,
hole.
yeah.
Yeah, you have to make them work for you.
Yeah. Mm,
And so, really navigating and creating systems, whether you're creating a system from the ground up because you need a certain kind of report, or you need to train someone in how to do something, or you need a certain result, you need to create a system that works for your client and works for you and the people that you're serving, and then gives you that result that you want, that metric, that measurement that you want. So I think that is what's important about systems, and how they can foster relationship. Um, I I think that, and a lot of this comes down to CRM management and data management. Um, you can allow your system to create consistency and build trust in your relationships.
Oh, say more.
So,
That's interesting.
so when you're dealing, whether you're doing sales or creating a volunteer structure or wanting to have better retention rates, your ability to track and have the proper number of touch points can create a system that develops strength and trust in your team.
Yeah.
And saying that doing what you say you're going to do. So in that way, the system then ends up serving the relationship and fostering the relationship versus becoming a hindrance and trying to stuff a square peg into a round hole. Help you create better data, better information, and create more touch points so that you can build the trust with whatever it is, your client or your volunteer. Whoever that is. So I think systems are great. And I'm also the first person to break that system and create something new.
Well, it seems like you understand how to make systems flexibly, so you can sort of break them and build them up better, which I think is incredible. Thinking about relationship development, let's say we think about relationship in a more broad term. What would you say is important to understand about our relationship with systems? Because I know a lot of people hate, well, myself included, on some level, hate systems, because they feel really rigid. They feel like, oh, I have to do this thing. How have you navigated having a healthy relationship to systems themselves?
Yeah, I think, touching on actually what you and I were texting about this morning, this idea of monotony, like systems are not sexy, like they're not fun. It's not energizing to like enter your data in and follow the rules and get that report done. I mean, there's so many different kinds of systems that we utilize within a workplace, within a program, between staff, whether it's a communication system. I mean, there just is systems run our life, it feels like
Yeah.
sometimes.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And right. And again, it's not sexy, it's not fun. No one wants to pay their bills on the 15th every month, but it does create consistency. And our lives truly are built on repetitive consistency over time. I mean, if you think about anything that you want to accomplish in your life, you have to be consistent about it.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whether it's that weight loss goal or the money you want to save for your vacation. And so I really think that systems are an important way to create what you want to create in your life, to build the relationships that you want to build, and to create that pattern of repetition. And so, in that way, when you start thinking about the results that the system gets you versus the system itself,
Yeah.
again, massaging it to make it work for you,
Yeah.
utilizing it, and even ditching it when it really is not right. There are so many different softwares and things that we can use to get the same result, depending on what programs your organization is using. But there's so many different ways to get the same result. And so utilizing your creativity, looking for flexibility with your boss or your organization, and throwing out the things that really truly are not working, because we all have to do that.
It sounds like you really have this idea that, like, so you operate on this idea that systems are to support people and not the other way around. Like,
Right.
And it seems like you really lean into that, and it seems like it sort of makes more space for relationships. Could you comment a little bit on that?
Yeah. So, in one of my recent roles, there was some data and some metrics that we were trying to pull together as far as attendance and our clients and the people that we are serving in these organizations. And it was really important for me to know the data that we wanted on at the end, because then I was able to put into place a system for measuring that. You know, if you're trying to measure something but you can't name it, you can't get that number just poof out of nowhere. You can't get that result just poof out of nowhere. You have to create a system for it to come to fruition. Doing that enabled the organization that I was working with to actually name how many engaged clients they had.
Oh,
and what those
wow.
engaged clients were doing and how many coaching hours they were investing for free with these executive directors that they were
Oh,
coaching.
wow.
So
Wow.
really, yeah, a system can speak to the robust results that you're getting. But you have to know what you want,
Yeah.
right? You have to know the end result that you want. And that system can result in a really impactful relationship and even seeing more impactful results than maybe you thought were once there.
Wow. That's so cool.
So,
That's such an
yeah.
exciting, that's such an exciting way to look at systems. And I think for me personally, it's interesting to understand that systems can be a support instead of a drag on the whole process of getting the results that you want. So, continuing to talk about relationships really broadly, let's talk about how your relationship with yourself and developing a relationship with yourself and understanding of yourself has been influential in your career trajectory.
I think this, when we're talking relationship development, has been for sure the biggest game changer for me. And not to get super transparent, but I guess I'm going to. I turned 40 last week. I think I told you that already.
Oh,
So like,
did you?
really caring.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I turned 40. But about 7 years ago, I entered into some personal counseling, and nothing had happened. There was nothing tragic happening in my life. It was just like, okay, a little tune-up moment, and someone had offered me a space to do that in. And I was like, I think this is the right time. And of course, I want like a little tune-up, like everybody does. And it really shifted my relationship with myself. It helped me look inside. And even if we want to talk about systems, but even helped me look inside into my internal systems, the things that I was thinking, the things that I was saying to myself, my relationship with myself, and how that was reflected out into my environment, into my work environment, into my environment. Now, I don't want to say I don't recommend counseling, but it does sometimes kind of flip your life upside down a little bit.
Yeah.
Did give me that tune-up that I wanted.
Yeah.
And really helped me realize that I can't give away something that I don't have.
Oh,
So whether
wow.
you're leading yourself, whether you're leading a team of peers, whether you're leading a team of people that are reporting to you, whether you're trying to grow a program or build something, whatever it is that you are desiring, you can't build that, you can't grow that unless you already have that. If you're looking for authenticity from other people, you need to be practicing that in your own life.
Wow. Yeah.
If you're looking for balance in your life, in your workplace, you need to be practicing that in the quiet, behind closed doors parts of your life.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever it is that you're seeking, you have to have and be practicing in your own life. And I don't mean you have to have it, like you have to understand it and
Right.
know it, because we're humans and
Right.
we are all here practicing on this thing called Earth.
Right. Totally.
But you cannot give away something that you don't have. So
Wow.
what are the places that you're replenishing yourself as you're leading, as you're growing a program, as you're wanting that career transition, wanting that promotion? It really made me take a hard look at the things that I was doing and practicing in my life and the results I was getting and the results I wished I was getting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's an eye-opener moment. I think
Yeah,
what's so exciting is it really seems like you have solved maybe, that secret sauce of how to mitigate burnout, at least at some level, is really cultivating yourself. I know we've talked a little bit, we haven't talked about it in this conversation, but we've talked a little bit about how assessments and understanding your strengths and your relationship to yourself and your strengths and weaknesses has really helped you. Can you talk a little bit more about how that knowledge has helped you sort of maximize your resources and optimize, tasks and your career?
absolutely. So, I mean, I'm not talking about, well, I'm a 90s like girl,
Yeah.
right? So we all passed around those teen magazines
Yep.
with the like surveys that you could take. I don't know. I did most of them like on the bus, opening up your Trapper Keeper
Yes,
or
the
whatever,
Tracker Keeper. Oh my God, yes.
or like hiding them in your science, you
Textbook.
know,
Oh my God.
book or what, yeah,
Yeah.
textbook in the back of class. Okay. So I love assessments. I think they're really great tools.
Mhm.
None of them are like the end all. Like they're not going to fix your
Mhm.
problems, but they are a great way to become more self-aware.
Hmm.
So when we're talking about our relationship with ourself and learning more about how you think you're showing up and how you truly are showing up, they're just really great indicators.
Mhm.
So I've taken, I mean, you want to talk about Strengths Finder, all the things.
Yeah.
I've taken them.
Myers-Briggs,
I've
the
Myers-Briggs, I know.
which Harry
I've
Potter
paid
house are
for
you
them. I've
from?
done, don't even get me started.
Oh, that's
But I
awesome.
think one of the one of the greatest things that I learned about myself most recently is that I am very, which this will be no surprise to anyone listening, but I am very motivated by relationship.
Mhm.
Ha
Mhm.
ha ha.
Weird. Is
Jokes,
that the
jokes
topic of
on
our
me,
show?
jokes on you.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Is it a joke on me or you?
That's great.
So I am highly motivated by relationship. So
Mhm.
when it comes to monotony, like we were talking about, those tasks, those systems maybe that are boring you,
Mhm.
um, I use relationship as motivation.
Mhm.
So when I'm looking and I'm feeling that burst of energy, I'm going to actually save those relationship motivating tasks for later. And I'm going to do the monotonous ones that I know I'm not going to have energy for
Mhm. Mhm.
later. So, utilizing my energy in different ways, the
Mm.
things that motivate me and don't motivate me, and focusing my work time around the energy that I have or don't have, and the things that motivate me and demotivate me.
Mm.
Even we were talking about pause earlier. Knowing really when to press pause. Do I need
Mhm.
to send an important? You know how many times I've sent an email too late at night with so many spelling errors, wrong dates, wrong times?
Yes.
I mean, don't do that.
Right. Yes.
Why
Yes.
did it take me so long to realize like 9:38 p.m. at night is not my best time? And I know that's a good time for some people
Right. Right.
in this remote working world, but
Mhm.
it's not for me.
Mhm.
And self awareness and learning what's best for you and how you work best, what motivates you, what demotivates you,
Mm.
has been the key to me finding roles and spaces and places where I know I'm going to thrive.
Mm.
I think I've
Yeah.
done some sales training recently, and it's just as important to try to sell to someone as it is to figure out if they're even a good client for
Mm.
you,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
whether you'll have a good relationship with them. Um,
Mm.
so yeah.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, we're nearing the end of our time and we're gonna close up with my favorite rapid fire questions. But first I just want to say thank you so much for joining me and for talking about this topic, which is certainly really important for a lot of people. So thanks so much for that. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so we're gonna close up with these rapid fire questions. First
You got
one,
it.
what is the most random job you ever had? I'm so excited to hear your answer for this one.
Well, you will be very impressed that I am Minnesota's #1 glue bottle filler.
Ooh.
Yeah, I filled glue bottles.
Oh my gosh.
And that same role, we were doing some organizing projects, and I put labels on books, like stickers, and color coded and then line them all up.
Ooh, okay. The color
Really,
coding actually sounds kind of fun. I kind of am a geek about color coding a little bit.
I mean, maybe I do like put my closet in color order. So
Ooh,
maybe that's where it all
that's
started.
awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so cool random jobs. I love those. What is the most what is the worst career advice that you have ever gotten?
Yes, the worst career advice I ever got was you can do it all. You can have it
Ooh.
all and you can be it all.
Say more.
Especially, yeah, especially as a mom
Mhm.
and a woman. I think that is the resounding message right now. Like, you can have it all and you can do it all. And I'm sorry to tell you, I will burst that bubble right now. You cannot. You do have to choose times.
Yeah,
You do
yeah.
have to choose. And there's no, judgment
Mhm.
for what you do choose in those moments, but you cannot have it all. So I will boldly admit to the LinkedIn podcast world that we eat on paper plates every night because
Hey.
I don't want to do more dishes. My husband doesn't want to do more dishes, and the teenagers are the worst at dishes.
Oh my.
So
Yeah.
we just have implemented some things in our life that maybe don't look super great, but
Hmm.
have enabled me to be a mom and have a career and work and provide for my family in the ways that are necessary, but also be present to them. So I can't do it all. I don't do it all. I also frequently bribe my children to not have large friend birthday parties. So, more parenting tips,
Oh.
you can follow me.
Well, I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, everyone who listened in. If you want to listen to this episode again, it goes live on all relevant podcasting channels on Monday. Don't forget to subscribe to the channels and like and share with friends if you think you know someone who would benefit from this information. And join me next week live at 8:30 a.m. on the Newly podcast, where you're going to get more practical, no BS insights on how to grow yourself and grow your career. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.